basically to create affordable housing for those who need it one room at a time. And it's like a vehicle to leverage income and financial freedom for hosts by creating a positive impact on the affordable housing crisis. You have 6 people living in that same square footage, right? Let's say you have 2,100 square feet or whatever. You have 6 people now living in that same square footage, each renting a room. Really, the destruction is kept to a bedroom. So if you're repainting, if you're replacing, if you're having to do those things, it's a bedroom, not the entire property as a whole. And, you have 5 other rooms continuing to generate income while you're doing any sort of repairs, or while even in a gap in vacancy, right? Like vacancy is always a huge risk aspect of a real estate investment. And even if a room sits empty for a little while, let's say it's a 6-bedroom property, you have 5 rooms generating income, so your loss margin is substantially less.
Mm-hmm.
Things that you're looking for is 2 bathrooms. You want a minimum of 2 bathrooms always, especially, we have a ratio no more than 4 bedroom or no more than 4 people to 1 bathroom. And even if you can get that ratio down to like 3 people per bathroom, that's really ideal for just the flow of living and customer experience and longevity of stay. So 2 bathrooms is really important. And then parking is really important. The ability, if you have 6 people in that home, especially in Dallas, you're going to have 6 cars at that home. So you have to find somewhere for them to go. But just kind of as an example of, when that deviates is Bobby actually has a property, and I think it's his Garland property, where there's no driveway and there's no street parking in front. And so it's like, oh, this doesn't fit. If you were to like look at the Zillow listing, it's like, where do the cars go? Well, actually the garage and the driveway there's an alley behind the street, and all of the homes have like back alley access, and the garage is back there. And so not only is that where the garage and driveway are, but that also means that the whole back fence or the backyard is fenced in, and you can access the backyard. And so you can turn that backyard now into a 8-person parking lot, right? Just laying down a little bit of gravel. And so that parking ends up being better than what we would say is like a driveway that can be expanded, or if you can, widen the driveway to use the side of the home for additional parking, that makes a really ideal setup. This one doesn't fall into any of those, but because the parking is behind the home, it really created a lot of access to all of the cars can be parked on property. And so that's something is you just kind of have to think through. Bedroom needs to have a bed, a mattress, a nightstand, a lamp, and somewhere to store clothes. So for that bed, we want it to be a full or a queen size bed. We always get asked, like, what about a twin? And I'm like, look, no grown adult is going to sleep on a twin bed for 9 months or longer. Like, that's just uncommon. So you want it to be a full size bed or a queen size bed. You want to put a mattress cover or mattress protector on that mattress, because that is something that helps protect the longevity and the life of that mattress between tenants, and a bed frame. You want to have a nightstand, you want to have a lamp, and then somewhere to store clothes. So if you're turning a living room into a bedroom, there's no closet there, and there's no point in investing in building in a closet. But if you can get a dresser or an armoire, or even like a standing clothing rack or something along those lines, somewhere that creates storage like a closet would, then that's all the furnishings needed in a bedroom. In the home as a whole, the kitchen needs to be furnished in the sense that it needs to have a refrigerator, microwave, oven, and stove. But that's really all that's needed, and a table. Now, if you have 6 people in that home, that kitchen table or somewhere to sit and eat, whether it be a counter with stools or a table, however that looks, you don't need to have 6 chairs. You need to have 2 or 3, because really only about, 2 to 3 people will ever be using the kitchen at the same time, if even that. And so you don't need to be able to provide family style meals for 6 people. You just need to have a comfortable place where 1 or 2 people can sit and eat in a time.
Okay. Yeah. Do you need like pots and pans and dishes and?
No, you don't. I kind of use the example of, it's like that group project mentality, right? If you're providing dishes, utensils, pots and pans, then what happens is you have 6 messy roommates that all fill the sink with dirty stuff, and they're waiting for that one roommate who goes crazy enough and cleans it for everyone. And then, then you use it again. But when you have your own stuff that you're responsible for, that creates such a better environment and like more camaraderie among the roommates. Because like, Bobby can be messy and maybe you're clean. I'm assuming as if you were roommates, right? Bobby can be messy and maybe you're clean, and so you keep your dishes clean. But when Bobby wants a clean bowl, he's not waiting for you to do the dishes. He's responsible to go clean his own bowl. And so that just creates a much better flow within the home. And when you're providing communal stuff, you also run the risk that somebody takes it when they move. And so when people are responsible for owning their own items, it creates a better experience for everybody.
Yeah.
So, and that also includes things like bed sheets, linens, blankets, pillows, towels, etc. So you as the host own the home, right? So the purchase, the appraisal, the rent collection, the operating expenses, all of those are on you, right? You're managing those. We collect rent, we do all of those things, but when it comes to like utility payments, those types of things, you set that up. This is your asset. And so when we're looking at comps, we're able to request that information from hosts nearby and be like, what is the purchase price? What was your appraisal rate? And when that's shared with us, that allows for comps, more or less, that can be shared with lenders that we can show, okay, other PadSplits in the area are performing this way. Like we can show rents, but when that is shared with us by local hosts, or when we request that by local hosts, we can provide additional data that way. But for the most part, it kind of makes more sense to appraise the home as a single family structure and add the living room conversion afterwards. Things to think about. So the purchase price is probably the first red flag that I think about. If your purchase price is too high, it's not going to turn, right? Like you're not going to have a great return. It's not going to be a solid investment for you. So if your purchase price is too high, it's not a good idea. And I think so many people come to us and they're like, oh, I found this 6-bedroom, 3-bathroom luxury home in Dallas. And right off, I'm like, no, you know what I mean? Because even if you get that to 8, you're probably spending 5+ on that property, which means you have like a 2% yield on that. Like that's not a great investment. But if you're able to find something for, under 3, where your all-in investment is in the 3s, then you're looking at a much better cash on cash return. And so, probably closer into the 12%, even with existing interest rates. And so that's really the first thing I look at is what's your initial investment? How far are you going to have to be leveraged into this property? Because you need to be able to turn a profit. HOAs are another red flag. Not to say that we don't exist in HOAs, but they're pretty tricky because even though, there's no zoning restrictions for what we do, an HOA has their whole different set of rules, and we need to go over that pretty closely. And usually it won't operate well, or you run a high risk of being shut down by the HOA. And so that's another thing where an HOA is a red flag. Really nice neighborhoods tend to be a red flag as well. So if you have almost like an HOA looking neighborhood, right? Like if the neighborhood is just like too nice, what happens is it's not that you get shut down, but those neighborhoods, you have 6 cars parked in front of that road or 6 people coming and going. Those are the neighbors that make the most complaints, usually. And so then you're getting citations frequently, even though we can prove you're not in violation of anything, those citations continue to come, and those come to you as the owner, which is just a nuance. And that just creates more work than it should and puts you on a radar that runs risk, right? And so whenever, again, if people come to us and it's like this luxury, 3,000+ square foot property, 5-6 bedrooms already in it, it's in this really nice neighborhood, that's awesome. That's not necessarily a great PadSplit. This is where it becomes so variable. We have a 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom PadSplit in Tampa that I think is like 890 something square feet. Like it's tiny, but because of the way it's built, it works, right? You really typically 5 tends to be the point where it starts to be profitable, and anything above 5 increases profitability, and then everything over 8 tends to run a little more risk, right? Like when you're going over 8, if you have more than 8 people, you probably need 2 fridges, which means you have bigger space. That means now you're needing more than 8 parking spaces. Like it just, the kitchen tends to become really small when you're going over 8 bedrooms, those types of things. So that like 6 to 8 bedrooms really tends to be the sweet spot, depending on square footage. I've seen 8 bedrooms, or really functional 7 bedrooms in like 16 to 1,800 square feet, and that works. But again, it depends on the purchase price. If you were able to get into a, 1,500-1,600 square foot property at a low enough purchase price where you're yielding really well at only 6 or 7 bedrooms, that is a great opportunity. And so it's just the purchase price, how many rooms can you get in the property, and the overall renovation cost those three, and the ability for parking, obviously, right? Like those are the things that you're really looking at, because if we just draw a hard line at like 2,000 square feet and only 8 bedrooms, you're actually probably missing out on a lot of opportunities that would be great at slightly smaller properties that might be 6 bedrooms, but maybe you got into that at under 2, right? And if you were able to do that, then your, cash on cash might be 15% or more. And that's a really great yield. It's not necessarily a deal to walk away from just because it doesn't hit that, prescription formula. Basically, our target audience is anyone making under 50K. And kind of looking for affordable housing. And that's a pretty high threshold, but also housing in Dallas is, and I'm using Dallas as an example, but housing nationally is pretty expensive. And so, but the majority of our tenants or our members tend to be blue collar or service industry, which is why we like to stay closer to a metro, because then you have more people looking for properties near their commute. And so like airports, hospitals, universities, any, big service industry balanced place. So any downtown has a lot of restaurants, a lot of stores, a lot of, those types of things. So anywhere with a lot of infrastructure means a lot of employees.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I don't know, for those of you familiar with like Dallas, for example, like, Arlington is great, Waxahachie is a little too far, right? And so you want to, in kind of the rule of thumb that isn't necessarily, again, prescription, there's variance to that, but you want to be basically 30 minutes from downtown. First, I would spend money on just adding rooms, right? Because rooms turn income. So, if you're not going to update the kitchen, you're not going to update the bathrooms, those types of things, add rooms, and I would replace flooring. I'd get rid of carpet right away. Those are the first 2 things I would do. And then also there's things, paint adds a great facelift without redoing or remodeling an entire kitchen or bathroom. A little bit of paint can go a long way. And so there's ways to rehab on a budget.
Okay.
The 2 main things I would say is get rid of carpet and put up walls.
Yes.
Yeah, I think just that with every host we work with, one is kind of like understanding your situation, right? So your financial situation also helps us to understand what's the best entry point for you, and what's the best way to get into a PadSplit. So like kind of understanding where you're coming from, understanding how you want this to look, right? Some hosts are like Bobby and are really hands-on and are great at managing and great at understanding the member experience. Other hosts want to be really passive investors and hands-off. And so better understanding what you want it to look like helps us to better support you and how to set that up, right? And how do we set you up in what works for you? So basically understanding and like, what do you want to get out of this, right? Like, or what are your goals? Because then that also helps us to kind of build a growth plan for you, because one PadSplit is great. Multiple PadSplits creates that portfolio where you're really starting to get, that passive income. And it truly comes from multiple properties. And so like, what are your goals? How do we help you to build that? And then from there, just really making sure that we're answering all of your questions and helping you to fully understand how PadSplit works, what to expect, not just what to expect each step of the way, but kind of playing chess, right? Planning for the next move and for what's coming next, analyzing properties, analyzing options, those types of things. It's such a hard thing to answer because everyone has different needs, right? Like everyone's questions are different. Everyone has different needs of, support in different areas and understanding different things. And so, like with Bobby, it's being really hands-on in like reviewing properties because he's always looking at properties. With other hosts, maybe it is really digging in and kind of the nuances of understanding how to best manage a property and what's expected of you, or kind of the ins and outs of legality, it's so diverse, So basically let us just be the wealth of knowledge and help kind of fill in all of the gaps that you have as a host to make you feel comfortable and ready to move forward. Just is like relentless about making complaints about this being a PadSplit property across the street, and that's problematic for that PadSplit and its ability to be successful. And so that's something that doesn't happen often, but it does happen, and that's one of those reasons why we try to avoid super nice neighborhoods. This one's not in one, this is just a pesky neighbor. But those things happen. Most of our members are great. Every once in a while we have members who, for lack of a better word, suck, right? They're bad roommates, they're bad tenants, they're bad they're destructive, they're, unclean, they're unkind, those types of things. We've run into all of that as well. It's more the exception than the rule. Like I said, most tenants are great. But every host, and Bobby can speak to that, there's a few out there that aren't great to deal with and great to manage. As member support, we try and take most of that off of your plate as possible and have member support manage that for you, so you're not really dealing with those things. I would say those are kind of the biggest things, right? And then from the member side, parking is the biggest complaint that we get, or members eating each other's food. Those are the two like internal issues that we hear the most of. So Bobby laughs because he's like, yeah. Also, you can go to our website, and through there's kind of like, you can sign up for at least, I think, a couple times a week. We do like a host web or a prospective host webinar. You can sit in on one of those. Usually there's a few people in, some calls are 2 or 3 people, some calls are 10 people. It kind of depends on the day and people's availability, but that's a really great way to learn more and then stick after and ask questions there too. And it's basically just this like PadSplit 101, answering your questions, analyzing a property, understanding how it works, understanding the yield, some of the rules, those types of things. So that's a really great place to go as well. And you can just go to padsplit.com, and then there's a part that says for hosts. So just click on there and kind of follow the prompts that can get you into one of those as well.